God doesn't introduce you based on your checklist, but through his divine wisdom, often using unexpected timing or circumstances. The first meeting with your soulmate may feel ordinary, even inconvenient, but it's heaven hiding in humility. God often places your soulmate in your life during seasons of transformation, not when you're looking, but when you're becoming. You might meet your soulmate while serving others, pursuing your calling, or being faithful to your work, because love is drawn to purpose. A divine connection is often wrapped not in fireworks, but in quiet peace, like a whisper that feels like home. Delay is not denial. God uses divine timing to refine both souls, making them ready for the sacred union. Let me ask you something you've likely never been asked this way. What if the love of your life walked past you yesterday, and you didn't even recognize them? What if heaven doesn't knock on your door with trumpets, but with the sound of a flat tire, a missed train, or a friend's casual introduction? You see, the divine rarely arrives in drama. When God introduces you to your soulmate, he often does so without your knowing, not to confuse you, but to grow you. So before you walk away thinking your story is behind schedule or out of sync, listen. Because if you've ever thought love was missing, it might only be wearing a disguise. Stay with me. This isn't a list of cliches. This is a glimpse into the quiet, wondrous strategy of heaven, and by the end of this, I promise, you'll look at every person you meet with new eyes. God rarely lets you meet your soulmate with fireworks and orchestras. Instead, he chooses ordinary moments to wrap the extraordinary. It could be a friend of a friend at a coffee shop, a stranger in a season when you're trying to rebuild your life. The first conversation may not feel magical. It may feel mundane, but the sacred often comes dressed in simplicity. You won't feel lightning, but you might feel stillness, and that stillness, that's divine familiarity. Your soulmate often enters your story not when you're seeking love, but when you're seeking growth. God's design isn't just for compatibility, but for calling. You're not just being prepared for someone, you're being refined with someone in mind. Think of it, the best partnerships are not made of two halves looking to be completed. They are made of two wholes, quietly becoming. Your soulmate may arrive in the middle of your healing, your passion, your obedience, not in the waiting room of romance, but in the workshop of character. The most divine introductions happen when you're least focused on meeting someone and most focused on fulfilling something. While you're serving, working, giving, building, love walks in without knocking. Why? Because love, true love, doesn't follow the scent of desperation. It follows the fragrance of purpose. If you're wondering why you're still waiting, maybe heaven's still watching your hands. What are you building? Who are you becoming? The one you're waiting for might be drawn not to your beauty, but to your becoming. So here's the wonder, your soulmate may already be in your story, in a sentence you forgot, in a meeting that didn't mean much, in a moment you overlooked but heaven did not. You don't need to strive, you need only to become, because when the soul is ready, love arrives, and not always with a trumpet, but sometimes with a whisper. And when that moment comes, it won't feel like falling. It will feel like remembering. We live in an age obsessed with preferences. The modern heart is a cartographer of desires, drawing maps of the perfect partner, as if love were a product of planning rather than providence. We list qualities, virtues, physical traits, shared hobbies, favorite books, even coffee preferences, hoping that somehow the sum of these parts will lead us to someone who feels like home. But divine love does not function like a vending machine. You don't insert your list and receive a perfect match. Love, especially when authored by God, rarely honors your checklist. It honors your soul's formation, what we call type. Heaven often calls distraction. Because more than being given what you want, God longs to give you what you need. And what you need often comes hidden behind what you wouldn't choose for yourself. Think of the great stories of sacred unions, not fairy tales, but real, forged in fire love. Do they begin with preference? No, they begin with inconvenience, with confusion, with someone not quite what you imagined, and yet, somehow, as the chapters unfold, you find that what you initially overlooked becomes the very thing you can no longer live without. This is not accident, this is divine strategy. God introduces your soulmate not through perfection, but through purpose, not by checking every box, but by awakening the part of you that doesn't need boxes at all, your spirit. And the language of spirit is not preference, it is recognition. It is that strange, quiet voice that whispers, "This person sees me, not because they fulfill me, but because they remind me of who I truly am." Many miss divine introductions because they are busy measuring potential partners against a list of preferences shaped by culture, fear, or fantasy. But God does not speak the language of fantasy. He speaks the language of reality, of growth, of resilience, of becoming. The person he introduces you to may not be wrapped in the packaging you expected, but love that is sent by heaven never needs glitter to be genuine. It simply arrives, sometimes soft, sometimes subtle, but always significant. Here's a mystery. The soulmate you are praying for may have already crossed your path, but because they didn't look the way you hoped, or because the timing didn't align with your desire, you dismissed the encounter. Divine introductions often come veiled, not to punish us, but to test the eyes of the heart. Can you see past the surface? Can you perceive what is present, even when it doesn't perform? God hides eternal things in temporal places. Just as he chose a manger, not a palace, for the birth of redemption, he often chooses ordinary settings for extraordinary meetings. Your soulmate might be disguised as a co-worker, a friend you've known for years, a stranger you met on an ordinary Tuesday while waiting for coffee. But divine moments do not advertise themselves. You must have eyes trained to see providence when it walks by, clothed in the fabric of everyday life. More than anything, God uses introductions as a mirror. Before he shows you them, he often shows you yourself. Love that is divinely orchestrated is less about finding someone to complete your life, and more about becoming someone whose life is ready for the weight of love. The introduction is not simply about meeting the right person. It is about becoming the right person, so that when God brings you face to face with your soulmate, your spirit recognizes what your eyes could not predict. And here lies the wonder. When God introduces you to your soulmate, you may not even realize it at first. There may be no spark, no cinematic swell of music, just peace, a quiet knowing, a sense of familiarity that grows over time, not because you engineered it, but because grace allowed it. So release the need to script your love story according to your preferences. Trust that the author knows you better than you know yourself. He is not late. He is not absent. He is working in ways unseen, drawing lives together not by coincidence, but by covenant. In the end, your soulmate won't be someone who fits perfectly into your list. They will be someone who fits into your soul, not because they match your preferences, but because they were made for your journey. And when that kind of love arrives, you will know, this was not my plan, it was providence. And providence always chooses better than preference ever could. When God orchestrates the meeting of two souls destined to walk through life together, he rarely announces the moment with fanfare. There are no neon signs, no sudden flashes of insight, no ethereal music playing in the background. Instead, he prefers the language of subtlety, quiet introductions, veiled in the ordinary, a passing conversation, a shared glance, A mundane situation that, unknown to you, holds eternity folded within it. You see, love introduced by God often doesn't look like love at all at first. It may even look like irritation. You might find the person slightly annoying or the timing wildly inconvenient. They may appear as a detour, an interruption, or even an obstacle. But that is the divine signature. He conceals the sacred beneath layers of the ordinary, so that only those who have learned to see with their spirit, not merely their senses, will recognize it. Why does he do this? Why wrap the miracle in mystery? Because what is truly sacred must be revealed, not consumed. A soul is not a product to be purchased by attraction. It is a mystery to be unfolded through time, trust, and attention. And in a world obsessed with appearances, God often chooses to shield your soulmate behind something unimpressive. Not because they are lacking, but because your eyes must first be trained to see what truly matters. To see value not in gloss or charm, but in quiet strength and hidden virtue. Many divine connections are missed precisely because they are disguised. The first conversation may be forgettable. The first impression may not dazzle you. In fact, you may walk away thinking nothing of it, but weeks or months later, something begins to stir. You recall a comment they made, a kindness they showed, a gentleness that seemed out of place in the world you know. And then the realization creeps in slowly. That ordinary person held something extraordinary, something eternal. Sometimes the person God is weaving into your life appears during a season when you're not even thinking about love. You may be grieving, healing, building, or beginning again. You may feel too distracted or too wounded to notice, but the divine is not bound by your timeline. He introduces what is sacred when you are least expecting it. Not to surprise you, but to protect you. Love does not grow best in the soil of obsession or longing. It blossoms in stillness, in moments when you are too focused on life to be chasing after romance. It is often only in hindsight that we realize the significance of a moment. We look back and think, that was it, that was the beginning, and I didn't even know it. There is a holy irony in that God introduces you to your future not through signs and wonders, but through conversations you almost forgot to remember, through glances you didn't pause to question, through interruptions you nearly complained about. But if you were to listen closely during those moments, if your heart were still enough, you might hear something faint yet profound. A subtle sense that this person feels, familiar, as if your souls once shared the same silence, as if something deep within you knows them, even though your mind does not yet understand how or why. These disguised encounters are not a test of intelligence. They are a test of attentiveness. Can you pay attention to your own spirit? Can you listen not just to words spoken, but to the energy with which they're spoken? Can you feel the weight of peace when they enter the room, even if nothing special seems to be happening? The sacred doesn't clamor for attention. It waits to be noticed. You may meet your soulmate while waiting in line, or during a group project you never wanted to be part of, or while helping someone else pursue their dream. They may not come in the form you prayed for, but they will carry something you didn't know you needed. Not perfection, but presence. Not grandeur, but grace. And when the realization comes, whether it happens quickly or over many quiet months, it will not feel like discovering a stranger. It will feel like remembering someone you've always known. The disguise will fall away, and what remains will be unmistakable. Not a coincidence, not a crush, but a calling. So be slow to dismiss the ordinary, stay awake to the subtle, for the person walking into your life without warning may not be a stranger at all. They may be a sacred echo, a divine whisper, a mirror of the soul God always intended for you to find. There is a quiet irony woven into the way God moves. He often begins preparing us for something long before we are even aware that we are waiting for it. And perhaps nowhere is this more true than in the mystery of love. We long for connection. We pray for companionship. Yet so often, the answer does not come in the form of another person, but in the slow, sacred work being done within ourselves. Before God introduces you to your soulmate, He often introduces you to yourself. The world teaches us to seek love as a rescue, a person who will arrive to heal the loneliness, to end the wandering, to finally give meaning to the waiting. But God does not traffic in such shallow comfort. His goal is never just to bring you someone who will make you feel better. His goal is to form in you the kind of character that can receive and steward love, not merely react to it. That's why the connection you long for might be delayed, not because love is being withheld, but because transformation is being invited. There are things in you that must be healed, strengthened, or stretched before your heart can hold another without harming them or losing yourself. Not because you are broken, but because love is heavy, not in a burdensome way, but in the way that all sacred things carry weight. Sometimes God doesn't introduce you to your soulmate right away because He is still shaping the soul they will one day meet. He is teaching you patience in disappointment, gentleness in anger, and courage in vulnerability. He is weaning you off false comforts and shallow desires, breaking patterns that would sabotage the very love you pray for. These seasons can feel like silence, but they are filled with divine activity. You are being forged, not forgotten, and it's not just about becoming better. It's about becoming real, becoming someone who loves without clinging, who gives without losing, who speaks the truth without fear. Growth is not self-improvement for the sake of impressing someone else. It is the becoming of who you were always meant to be, so that when your soulmate arrives, they don't meet a performer, they meet a person. What we often overlook is that God may be doing the same thing in them. The person who will one day love you deeply is also on a journey. They are learning their lessons, carrying their burdens, and being refined by their trials. And what a tragedy it would be to meet too soon, when neither of you is ready to see the other clearly or love the other rightly. So while you wait, let the waiting be active. Let it be a time of awakening, not just longing. Discover your calling, cultivate your mind, heal your heart. Find joy in solitude and strength in silence. For the growth you embrace now is not just for you. It is for the one who will one day need your presence to feel like peace, your words to feel like wisdom, your embrace to feel like home. Do not underestimate what it means to be ready. Readiness is not about having everything figured out. It's about being rooted enough to withstand the storm that love sometimes brings. It's about having the maturity to endure miscommunication without running, the humility to say, "I was wrong," and the tenderness to hold another's pain without making it about your own. And when the time comes, when the right moment intersects with the right heart, you will not feel a sudden surge of fireworks. You will feel something deeper, a quiet recognition that all this time, in all your becoming, heaven was preparing you for this. The connection won't complete you, because by then you won't need to be completed. But it will enrich you. It will deepen you. It will feel less like being swept away and more like being grounded in something eternal. In that moment, you'll understand why God didn't rush the process. You'll see how the delays were not denials but design, how the loneliness was not abandonment but preparation, and how the growth was not punishment but mercy, because if love is to last, it must be built on something more than emotion. It must be built on character, and character takes time. So trust the quiet seasons. Trust the lonely nights. Trust the work being done in you that no one sees. For when love does come, and it will not feel like escape. It will feel like arrival, There is a peculiar truth in the way God writes love stories. Often, the path to your soulmate does not begin with romance. It begins with service. It begins not with someone catching your eye, but with your heart being caught by something larger than yourself. The deepest love stories are not born in the theater of longing, but in the field of purpose. For when you are fully immersed in the work you were made to do, when your hands are busy with compassion, with vision, with the needs of others, you create a space where love can quietly arrive, unseen and unforced. The world tells you to look for love by making yourself more visible, dress sharper, talk louder, promote your best angles, but heaven's strategy is different. God often introduces you to your soulmate while you are too focused on something sacred to be looking for anyone at all. And perhaps that is the point. Divine love finds you when your heart is aimed not at yourself, but at others. It is in the labor of love that love finds its mirror. Consider the places in Scripture and in life where holy unions begin. Ruth was gathering grain in the fields when Boaz noticed her, not performing, not positioning, but providing. Isaac met Rebekah when she was drawing water not for herself, but for others. Even the first union between Adam and Eve occurred while Adam was fulfilling his purpose, naming creation, stewarding the garden. The pattern is not coincidence, it is design. God reveals love in the context of purpose, because purpose protects you from illusions. When you are walking in your calling, you are less likely to be deceived by charm, and more likely to be drawn to character. Service is not a detour from your love story. It is the soil where love grows without pretense. When you serve, you reveal your truest self. You are not performing, you are giving, and when two people meet in that space, when both are living beyond themselves, they do not fall in love based on appearance or impression, but on resonance. Something deep calls to something deep, not because either is looking, but because both are living. This is why the love that begins in service tends to endure. It is built not on fantasy, but on shared vision. When two souls serve side by side, they come to know each other not by asking, "What can you give me?" but by discovering, "What can we give together?" They fall in love not only with each other, but with the goodness they create together. Their bond is not merely emotional, it is mission, aligned, and such a union is not easily shaken. You may not see it now, but the acts of kindness you pour into your work, the compassion you extend to strangers, the unseen effort you give in quiet faithfulness, all of it is preparing you. Not only are you becoming the kind of person someone would be blessed to love, but you are positioning yourself in the very places where heaven likes to orchestrate meetings. Because when your heart is aligned with God's purposes, it becomes a magnet for the right kind of people, those who are drawn not to your image, but to your essence. And perhaps the most beautiful thing about meeting your soulmate in service is that the connection will not feel sudden or shallow. It will grow slowly, steadily. You will begin to notice that this person carries a burden that looks like yours, that their steps move in the same direction, that their joy is found not in attention, but in obedience. You may find yourselves building something long before you ever think of building a life together. And then one day you will look up and realize, this was love all along, not because we chased it, but because we walked faithfully and found each other on the way. Do not despise the seasons where you feel unseen. Do not neglect the quiet duties or the small acts of love that seem to go unnoticed. These are not wasted moments. They are sacred appointments. Love, when sent by God, does not require a spotlight to begin. It needs only a heart surrendered to serve, for it is in that posture that heaven does its finest matchmaking, not with noise, but with purpose. And when the time is right, when both hearts have been softened by service and shaped by calling, the meeting will happen. Not in the frenzy of pursuit, but in the calm of recognition. You won't need to force it. You will simply realize that love has been walking beside you all along, wearing the same yoke, moving toward the same kingdom, hidden in plain sight. Love, when it is divinely appointed, does not arrive with thunder or noise. It does not knock the wind out of you or demand your attention with fire and spectacle. It comes instead like a soft breeze through an open window, quiet, calming, and unmistakably real. One of the clearest signs that God is introducing you to your soulmate is not the rush of emotion, but the presence of peace, that deep, unshakable stillness that settles over your soul, not because everything is perfect, but because something within you knows this is safe. The world often tells us that love should feel like intensity, like butterflies, obsession, passion that consumes and overtakes. But God's love story is written in a different ink. The kind of love he authors carries a deeper current. It may not sweep you off your feet, but it will root you. It will not blind you. It will open your eyes. There is a difference between being swept up and being settled down, and peace always points to the latter. When God brings someone into your life with his fingerprints on the introduction, there is often a strange and beautiful sense of familiarity. You may not have known them long, and yet you feel as if you've returned to something rather than discovered it. It's not dramatic, it's not chaotic, it's not even particularly loud, but it is strong, it is steady, and it speaks in the language of peace. Peace does not mean the absence of challenge. It does not mean that the person in front of you will never frustrate or confuse you. It does not mean there will be no uncertainty or questions. But even in the midst of those things, peace remains. It is the sense that you do not have to strive to be understood, that your presence is welcome, your silence is safe, and your heart can exhale. You don't feel the need to earn their attention or shrink to stay in their affection. You are simply free to be. That is the quiet miracle of divine love. It grants rest. And in a world so loud, so frantic, so filled with noise and endless striving, that kind of rest feels almost like a foreign language. Many miss it because they are looking for drama, for sparks, for the kind of love that burns fast and bright. But divine love is more like a slow, burning fire. It warms, it endures, it lights the room, not just the moment. This peace is not something you can fake, and it is not something you can force. It is something you notice in the stillness, often when you are not looking for it. You find yourself at ease in their presence. Your laughter is unguarded. Your thoughts are not edited. There is no script to follow, no mask to wear. And the more time you spend with them, the more peace grows, not because you are avoiding hard conversations, but because you are no longer afraid to have them. In divine connections, peace is not passive, it is active. It protects, it calms fears, it clarifies confusion, it whispers truth when insecurities start to speak. It is not the kind of peace that comes from avoidance, but the kind that is born of mutual grace and trust. The peace of knowing that even in conflict, you are fighting together, not against one another. Sometimes you don't even know why you feel that peace at first. You may look back and realize the circumstances weren't particularly special. The surroundings were simple, the interaction was short, but something lingered, not excitement, not infatuation, but a quiet, abiding sense of calm. That is how the Spirit often works, planting seeds of recognition before your mind has time to understand what your soul already sees. Peace is a signpost on the path toward your soulmate, not because it guarantees perfection, but because it reveals alignment. When two souls are aligned under God's timing and purpose, peace is the natural fruit. It doesn't mean the journey will be easy, but it does mean the foundation will be firm. The storms may come, but the house will not fall. So if you find yourself with someone who brings chaos into your spirit, who makes you question your worth or constantly stirs anxiety in your soul, pause. That is not how heaven speaks, but if you find someone around whom your heart feels still, not silent but still. Pay attention. If being with them feels like coming home to a place you didn't know you missed, you may be standing on holy ground. Because when God writes the story, love may not be loud, but it will be clear. It will not always come with fire, but it will always come with peace, and that peace is not a feeling, it is a voice. It is the voice that says, you can stop searching. You are already known. We often misunderstand the role of time in the story of love. We treat delay as punishment, silence as absence, and waiting as something to be endured rather than embraced. But divine timing is not a cruel game. It is not a test to see how long you can survive without what you desire. It is a tool, shaping you, refining you, preparing the soil of your life for something far more lasting than momentary affection. When it comes to soulmates, God is not slow. He is intentional, and in his hands time is never wasted. It is sacred. There is something deeply humbling in learning that the timeline we imagined for love is not the one heaven intends. We dream in immediacy. We want answers quickly, feelings fast, connections that come together like puzzle pieces. But divine love is not about speed. It is about substance, and substance takes time. The waiting you experience is not empty space. It is a holy pause in which God does some of his most transformative work. What feels like nothing happening is often everything being prepared. Timing, in the hands of God, is not a passive backdrop. It is a sculptor chiseling away at impatience, ego, fear, and fantasy. It works on your soul in silence. It teaches you to love without clinging, to hope without demanding, to trust without seeing. These are not easy lessons. They are not glamorous, but they are necessary, because love that is built too soon collapses under its own weight. But love that is built after the soul has learned to stand can weather anything. Many people view the delay in meeting their soulmate as a sign of fail. Either they've missed the moment, or God has withheld the gift. But heaven does not operate on the same clock as earth. What seems late to you is often perfect to him. He is not watching the hours, he is watching the heart, and hearts are not microwaved into readiness. They are slowly matured, gently stretched, and quietly made whole. What feels like a long wait may be a brief preparation for something eternal. If God gave you the person you're praying for before you were ready to meet them, that very blessing could become a burden. Love is not sustained by feeling, but by wisdom, maturity, grace, and commitment. These are not instincts. They are cultivated. They must be learned in the waiting, so the delay is not denial. It is mercy. It is grace disguised as distance. It is love teaching you how to love well before love arrives. It is also worth considering that the timing may not be about you alone. The one meant for you may also be walking through their own preparation. Perhaps they are learning to let go of their past, to break free from fear, to grow into the kind of soul that can hold yours with gentleness and strength. You are not waiting in vain. You are waiting in partnership with divine timing, trusting that when all things are ready, your heart, their heart, the circumstances, the callings, the meeting will happen in a way that no striving could have arranged. When the time does come, it will not feel rushed or forced. It will feel right, not perfect, not without questions, but settled, the way seasons shift, not abruptly, but undeniably. Something in you will recognize that the waiting was not about punishment, it was about positioning. Positioning you both to see, to receive, and to protect what God has written between your lives. And when you look back, as all lovers eventually do, you will understand why the waiting mattered. You will see how time was never your enemy. It was your ally. It didn't hold you back. It held you in place until the right doors opened. You will see how your growth, your failures, your prayers, your longings, all of it was part of a holy orchestration. You were not standing still. You were being shaped for something that would last. So do not resent the delay. Do not fear that you have missed your moment. What is meant for you cannot be lost if your hands remain open and your heart remains faithful. God does not tease. He does not forget. He does not give halfway. He gives in fullness, and fullness always takes time. Love introduced by heaven does not arrive late. It arrives when both souls are ready to carry the weight of glory together. And when it does, it will not come as a test of your worth. It will come as the reward of your preparation, the fruit of your surrender, the promise that time, when held by the hands of God, is never wasted, but always redeemed. We imagine that when God introduces us to our soulmate, it will be marked by some grand unveiling, a moment so dazzling that we will stand in awe, instantly recognizing that this person is the one we've been waiting for. But the truth, more often than not, is quieter. Love does not always enter our lives wearing robes of majesty. Sometimes it arrives in the familiar, in the mundane, in the ordinary rhythms of life that we almost overlook. And therein lies the divine mystery, that something as eternal and sacred as love can hide within the seemingly unremarkable. God has never needed spectacle to accomplish his most profound work. A burning bush in the desert, a whisper on the mountain, a baby born in a stable, time and again the holy is hidden in the humble. So why would it be any different when he introduces you to someone meant to shape your soul? The world conditions us to search for chemistry, sparks, magnetic connection. But God's introductions are not always loud. Often, they are planted like seeds in the soil of the everyday, too small to recognize at first, too subtle to celebrate with certainty. A kind word shared over coffee, a smile that lingers without reason, a recurring presence in your life who doesn't knock the wind out of you but gives your heart space to breathe. These moments don't shout, but they echo. Sometimes the one meant for you isn't a stranger who steps into your life with a flourish, but a friend who's been quietly beside you for years, or a new acquaintance whose presence doesn't rattle you but steadies you. You may not be drawn to them by instant attraction or overwhelming emotion. Instead, it is something deeper, a peace, a sense of familiarity, a quiet joy. God often wraps his greatest gifts in ordinary packaging, not to deceive us, but to teach us to look beyond appearance and into essence. If you only expect love to arrive dramatically, you may miss it entirely, because heaven is not interested in performance. It is interested in purpose, and purposeful love is not loud. It is consistent. It is present. It listens more than it speaks. It builds slowly without fanfare, and roots itself in the details we tend to dismiss. There is sacredness in the small things, shared errands, quiet conversations, helping hands, ordinary faithfulness. That's where real love grows, not just in candlelit moments and poetic gestures, but in how someone responds to your worst day, how they remember your needs without being asked, how they choose you not when you're shining, but when you're struggling. The divine fingerprints on a relationship are often most visible in the ways love manifests when no one else is watching. It takes a certain maturity to recognize this kind of love. It takes eyes that are no longer blinded by the need for constant excitement and hearts that have learned to find value in depth, not just appearance. That's why God often takes his time with us, so that by the time the right person stands in front of us, we have been trained by patience to see what the hurried eye misses, and it works both ways. As much as you are looking for someone, someone is looking for you. And they too may be expecting something grand, until they encounter your quiet strength, your patient smile, your willingness to show up without pretense. And suddenly, what felt ordinary becomes unforgettable. You may be someone's hidden miracle, just as they are yours. It's also why you must treat every encounter with care. The stranger you show kindness to today may become the friend who understands your soul tomorrow. The person you work with, study with, serve alongside, these are not accidents. God weaves people into our story long before we realize the chapter they are meant to fill. So live attentively, speak gently, give freely, because love doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it grows unnoticed until one day it blooms fully and you realize it was here all along. This is not a call to lower your standards. It is an invitation to refine your vision, to stop looking for love only in the fireworks, and to begin noticing the divine in the flicker of candles. Because the most enduring love stories are not written in bold headlines, but in the margins, where two souls find each other not through lightning strikes, but through 1,000 quiet yeses. So do not rush past the ordinary. Do not grow weary of the familiar. God often hides holy things in humble places, and perhaps without realizing it, love is already near, not demanding your attention, but gently waiting to be seen. Would you like me to now structure the full speech using all 7 keynotes in a flowing narrative, starting with a powerful introduction, tools,